Well, hello, welcome again to our reading of the Greek New Testament. I'm reading 1 Corinthians chapter 7 up to verse 17. Eime hekasto hos emerisen hokurios, hekaston hos kekleken hothios, hutos peripateto, kai hutos entais ecclesiais passais diatasomai. Peritit me menos tis ecclethe me epispasto, en aquabustia kekletai tis me peritemnesto. He perito me udenestin, kai he aquabustia udenestin. Ala teresus en tolon theou. He kestos en te klese, he ecclethe en taute meneto. Doulos ecclethes, me soi meleto. Al e kai dunasai eleutheros genestai, malon cresai. Hoga en curio clethes doulos, apeleutheros curiu estin. Homoios ho eleutheros clethes doulos estin Christou. Times e gorasthete me genesthe douloi anthropon. Hekastos en he ecclethe adelphoi en tuto meneto paratheo. Now, it's slightly idiomatic here at the beginning of this. We have eime and then hos, which is something like, in modern English, it's idiomatic. We translate as only as. So the main imperative is down here, peripateto from peripatio, and as I mentioned before, peripatio is the word that's used to translate the Hebrew halach, which means to walk, and it's used in a metaphorical sense to conduct your life. So conduct your life in this way, only as the Lord emerisen from merisdo, to assign or give, hekasto to each one, and then repeats it again, as God, kekleken, has called each one. Interesting here the use of hot kurios with the article, probably referring to Jesus, and hot theos referring to God. So just to put that together, so conduct yourself in that way only as the Lord has assigned to each man, and as God has called each man. This is a perfect from Kallio. Kai hutos entais ecclesias passus. Diatasomai is I give instruction. Hutos, I also give instruction in this way among the assemblies, in the churches perhaps, but the idea of a formal church, these are more rather loose Christian assemblies at this point of time. Peritetme menos tis. Now this is from peritemno. This is the perfect passive participle. It means to cut around, and hence it means to circumcise. So if aorist passive, if someone was called in a state of having been circumcised, me epispasto. Well, trigger warning here. This is from spao, to drag or draw, and the epi has that sense of down. This is a reference to an ancient operation, and we do have some of the gory details, in fact, about this operation, which sought to partially reverse circumcision. It must have been extremely painful, and it must have been quite dangerous, in fact. So Paul is saying, if you happen to have been called in a state of circumcision, do not reverse the process. Do not try to drag down flesh to make a new foreskin, is the ultimate meaning of this. The aquabustia is the word for foreskin, but it comes to be used quite idiomatically, as you see in Romans as well. So literally, if someone was might be called, this is if someone has been called, this is a perfect passive here from Kallio, and here n instrumental with a foreskin, may peritemnesto, let him not be circumcised. Present imperative from peritemno. Temno, of course, meaning to cut. And from that verb, peritemno, we get the abstract noun, peritome, for the act of circumcision, or the state of circumcision. For circumcision is uden, nothing, and the acrobustia, the foreskin, is nothing, but understand what is important is the teresis, abstract noun connected with tereo, to keep, so the keeping of the commandments of God, from entole. So in that feminine third declension, he teresis, feminine noun, meaning the keeping. Hekastos en teklese eklese. Okay, we get an imperative. Let each one remain in the calling. Let each one remain in this, in the calling in which he was called. It's perfectly good Greek. It's a bit odd in English, but it's perfectly good Greek, this here. So it's, for doing it more literally, you could say, let each one in the calling in which he has been called, let him remain in it. Doulos eklethes, and we get these, there's no question mark here, but these are kind of rhetorical questions and then being answered. So it's something like, if you were called, this is an aorist passive again, but it's second person. If you have been called as a doulos, as a slave, me soi meleto, well, let it not be a concern to you. In other words, don't worry about it. Well, that's nice if you're not a slave, I suppose, but if also you are able to become eleutheros, free. Now, malon kresai, unfortunately, the meaning here is disputed, and there are two completely opposite interpretations are possible. Either it means, kresai is an infinitive, meaning from kratomai, to use. So it's rather make use of it. Now, it may mean make the most of your slavery, in other words, stay in being a slave, or take advantage of your opportunity for freedom. Now, unfortunately, one would like to take the second option, to think it means the second, but it unfortunately probably more means the first, given what's coming a bit later here, because Paul seems to be saying that whatever state you are called in, just put up with it and remain in it. Anyway, I'll leave you to read the commentaries on this. It would be nice to say it means take advantage of it, take advantage of becoming free, but it may mean just make the most of your slavery. Hoga en kurio kleithus doulos apol. For the one who is called a slave in the Lord, he is ap eleutheros. So it's almost instrumental here. So the one who was called by the Lord as a slave, he is ap eleutheros, he is liberated, and then we get kurio, in the Lord, or of the Lord. So perhaps, again, it's quite idiomatic here, you've got to paraphrase it a little bit. So for the one who was called by the Lord as a slave is liberated in the Lord. It's really a of the genitive here. Homoios hoeleutheros, likewise, in like manner, hoeleutheros klethes, the one who has been called as a free man, is a doulos, a slave of Christ, of the Messiah. Times he gorasthete. We've had this expression before. It's the aorist passive from agorazdo, to buy. So you were bought, times, genitive of price. You were bought for a price. So the verb is agorazdo here, split across the line. It's an aorist passive, second person plural. Me genes their douloi anthropon. Do not become douloi, slaves of men. Hekastos en ho eklethe adelphoi en tuto mineto paratheo. Each man, we get this imperative, the same structure we had before here. So, O brethren, let each man in the, well, it must mean something like in the state in which he has been called, let him remain in it, paratheo, beside God or with God. So just to paraphrase that. So let each man remain with God in this state in which he was called. So the ho here is, it's en tuto and then ho, en tuto and then ho, and then the tuto is elided, of course, and it just takes its case from the previous clause grammatically. So each one in the situation in which he was called. Peri de ton parthenon epitagain kurio uk echo gnomein de didomai hos elie menos hupakurio pistos enai nomisdo un tutokalon huparkein diatain enestosan anankein hotikalon anthropo to hutos enai dedesai gunaiki metse te lusin le lusai epigunaikos metse te gunaika eon de kai gameses uk hemates kai eon game he parthenos uk hematen the lipsin de te psaki hexusit hoi toiutoi ego de humon phaidamai. I'll just pause there with that. So but regarding the Parthenon, the unmarried women, so these are the virgins or the unmarried women, I do not have an epitagain, I've seen that verb before, an instruction or a command, and then from Kuriu, from the Lord. Gnomein der didomai, this is a slightly tricky little bit here. We have here a perfect passive participle. It's from the verb ele-eo, so el-e-eo, and the second epsilon is lengthened here in the perfect passive participle. So as one having been shown mercy from the Lord, literally to be faithful, I give the opinion. So having been given mercy by the Lord, it's almost so as to be trustworthy for pistos. So I give this opinion as one who has been given mercy by the Lord, so as to be understood with the, we probably need a hostie or something, but we don't get it here, pistos, trustworthy. In other words, I don't have any direct instruction from God, but I give trustworthy advice. Nomisto, therefore I consider this, huparkein is used as an infinitive, it's like anai. I think this to be the best, to be good. Now the next little bit again is idiomatic. It's on account of the enestosan. This is from enhistemi. The established is the sense of it. He likes this word. He uses this quite a bit. It can mean current or necessary. Current, and then ananke is necessity. So it's something like on account of the current necessity. So perhaps on account of the difficult situation. So I consider this to be the best because of the current difficult situation that, again he repeats Kalon, it is good for a man to be thus, to be as follows. And then he's got these rhetorical questions without a question mark and then an immediate command to go with it. Dedesai is second person perfect from, and it's a passive from deo. So, have you been bound to a wife? Me tsete lusin, do not seek. It's an imperative, as you can see from the accent. So, say te, do not seek lusin, release. Lusai apogunikos, have you been released from a wife? Me tsete gunika, do not seek a wife. But if all, and even if gameses, you might marry, subjunctive, uk hametes, you have not sinned, aorist from hamartano. And if the maiden might marry, she has not sinned. Hoi toiutoi, such men, well such people here, because he's referring to male and female, so such people, hexusi, future from echo, will have tribulation in the flesh. So being married means you're going to have a lot of strife, so such people will have tribulation or troubles in their flesh, that is, as opposed to their spiritual life, in their physical life. Ego de, but I, Phaidamai, I am sparing, and it takes a genitive, I am sparing you. In other words, I would, often translated, I would spare you from all this, from having all these troubles in marriage. Tuto defami adelphoi, hokairos sun estalmenos esti, toloipon hinakai hoi ekontes gunaikas, and it goes over the page. This again is a little bit tricky here, because Paul is often, he starts a sentence and then he puts something else in and he's got to pick up the threads. Or we have to pick up the threads. So, tutok defami, I say this, and that follows on then to the hina. And we've got a semicolon here as well, and you see both of these, there are issues with the punctuation here. So, take the adelphoi first. So, my brothers, the time, kairos, sun estalmenos esti. This is from sustello, and sustello has a range of meanings as well, of course. It has the sense of has been drawn together and hence shortened. For the time has been shortened. So it's something since the time has been shortened. This is a periphrastic perfect here, passive. So something like, since the time, my brothers, has been shortened, I say this, that, toloipon, in regard to what is coming, in respect to what happens from now, I say this, that, both those having wives, that they might be hos me ekontes osin, that they might be as, that's the osin, that they might be as those not having wives. So it's a slightly contorted sentence here because Paul puts an extra bit in and makes it more confusing, so just quickly to look at that again. So I say this, brethren, the time having been shortened, in what remains, I say that, the chi is awkward there, those having wives, that they also be as those who do not have them. And those weeping, kai hoi kleontes, hos me kleontes, kai hoi kairontes, hos me kairontes, kai hoi agorasdontes, hos me katekontes, kai hoi chromenoi ton cosmon, hos me kata chromenoi, par ege ga to schema to cosmu tutu. And those who are weeping, and we've got to supply this osin, may they be as those who are not weeping, and those who are rejoicing, may they be as those not rejoicing, and those buying from agorasdo, may they be as not those not. Well, katekontes is keeping hold of, so perhaps taking possession or hanging on to the things that you buy. So those who buy as those who are not planning to hang on to them. And those chromenoi, now this is from kraamai, to use, so perhaps it's almost engaging with, but now kraamai always takes a dative, or almost always. Here it's got an accusative, which is very late and very rare. So it's those who are making use of the world, perhaps engaging with the world, as those who were not engaging with the world. For to schema, the form of the world, get our word scheme from this, for the form of the world, of this world, par age, is passing by, is passing away. And that's the next section of chapter 7.